We talked about Warren JFK to lead off the show. Let's talk about our other independent school in Louisville and what the Leopards are bringing into 2021.
Well, the offensive players that I think are the ones to watch. Well, first to go off the guys they lost, both Tyler Jackson, their quarterback, and Jacob House, a wide receiver, off of the Leopards team this year. So that's two big offensive pieces that are going to be lost. But they do have a group of seniors on offense that are going to be fun to watch. And Cameron Brazick starts on the offensive line. He's going to be a leader, I think, on that O line. He's absolutely going to be a coverage junkie for them. Connor Adelman is their senior running back as well. He's going to be a huge dynamic piece out of the backfield. So I expect him to get a lot of touches. Zach Seaman, defensive back and wide receiver, very good at both, very good hands, good at catching the ball. So expect him to grab some picks on one end of the field and get a lot of catches on the other. And then the tight end, wide receiver, AJ Ligenhole, tight end, and listen to this size stature, 6'6", 230 pounds. Tight end wide receiver AJ Ligenhole for Louisville. He's going to be a big name to watch and a huge target, I will say. Travis Kelce built stature already at the high school level. If to relay something to you, Anthony, Travis Kelce stature, I'd say for Ligenhole, but 6'6", 230 is a huge size.
That's a monster at tight end, and you know they're going to use him to chip block too on the line because that's size that you can use in both facets. Man, if he wears 87,
I've seen some film on this kid too. I don't remember the number he was wearing, but I've seen some film, and boy, he does do very well on both ends, blocking wise, and he could catch the ball very well too. They use him in a lot of stick routes. They were using him too in some slant routes, but he's one of those guys that can catch the ball very well for a tight end, and he's hard to bring down.
We got to watch Zach Seaman also a lot last year. I think he was a very under the radar wide receiver when you come to the YSN coverage map. Very good wide receiver, going to be leading that group this year, leading that wide receiver room. And he's going to be one of the main targets for the new quarterback stepping into their shoes.
Yeah, and I mean he's part of both him and Brandon Jackson look to be both a pair of defensive back and wide receivers. Brandon Jackson, one of those guys that has tremendous speed, going to be fantastic. I think as a defensive back, has to come a little bit of ways, has to have a little bit better catching hands too, which I think he's worked on a lot. I think he's going to be inserted a lot more as a wide receiver. Didn't get a whole lot of time though last year, so I think he's going to have a little bit more time as a wide receiver this year. So you're going to see Brandon Jackson be used a lot too, but Brandon Jackson definitely one of those defensive players I think you got to watch in that defensive backfield. Part of him and Zach Seaman out of those defensive players, I think that secondary is going to be very good for Louisville.
Oh, it's a perfect segue to talk about their defense and some of the things that are going to make their defense something to watch this year in 2021.
I think the pair of both, Jackson and Seaman in the defensive backfield is going to make them very dynamic for forcing turnovers, getting those interceptions. The one player that was really a loss for them, Josh Stafford, was both an offensive lineman, defensive lineman. He was a kind of a big defensive lineman too, good at getting in the face of the quarterback. But as you see too, and guys like AJ Ligenhole, they have a lot of size down there in Louisville, especially on the line. So they look to groom some of these defensive linemen. And Louisville has some guys too in their program, guys that we haven't even been talking about yet, and names we might not necessarily know, but you're going to know by the end of the season because they have some pretty big guys down there in Louisville. And I mean, you might even see guys like Ligenhole start transitioning and playing a little bit too on the defensive side too, just because of the size and stature. He could definitely be inserted in as a D end if they wanted to as well. But I definitely think the guys that are locked in as defensive backs right now are both Zach Seaman and Brandon Jackson. I think it's going to start and end with them. That's a senior in Seaman, a junior in Jackson that are going to be a dynamic duo of upperclassmen in that secondary for Louisville and their defense.
There is definitely something in the water down there in Louisville because not just look at their football team, they're built. The volleyball team has some height on it too. It's like, where are these people coming from?
Just great athletes too.
They also
girls side.
You know, we've talked about Canton and Massillon volleyball before, and then the same with their football. It's because they have a bigger pool of people to draw from. So inevitably, you're going to get some more people with more height than you do in the smaller schools that we see in our area. I think that's one of the reasons why you will see these teams in Canton and Massillon have more people that are 6'6", 6'1" for the girls teams. and it's just because they have more people to draw from, and that's just one of the things.
Yeah, I mean it helps too when you have a little bit more people to draw from, absolutely. And I think it's going to be part of what makes Louisville though really good this year, and I think that's why you're going to see a lot of guys we haven't been mentioning before, but you're going to start mentioning them a lot more this year.
And what's also going to make Louisville very good, very underrated, people don't talk about it enough, but for 3 years before last season, they had different coaches swap out. And for the first time in 3 years, these seniors get continuity. So for the first time, the last year's juniors that are now seniors have the same coach that they had the year before. And we had him on. He was one of the first guests that we had on Running Point. And he said that he had players coming into his office after football season saying, is so-and-so staying? They were worried about coaches staying. And it was such a relief for him and for the players to just say, no one's leaving. Everything's staying exactly the same. And they don't have to worry about that anymore. There's such continuity in the program. And that's one of the reasons why I think Louisville is really going to take a big step this year. Not a program that is used to being down. They are a proud football program. 5 wins is a down year for Louisville. So they're looking to get up to 7-8 in that independent schedule that we're going to talk about in a little bit. A very tough, maybe the toughest schedule that we have in our YSN network.
Yeah, could possibly be. And I mean, when you're constantly changing coaches, it doesn't make for building a program any easy. We saw what the Browns have been trying to do for 20 plus years, trying to change coaches constantly. You need that continuity year to year to try to build a program, because you can't build that foundation if you're constantly changing what's being put into the foundation. So yeah, I think having that coach that carries over from 1 year to year 2 is going to be huge for Louisville taking that next step in their football program. And they're going to need it too, because like you said, looking at their schedule, you're opening it up with Barberton, home versus Barberton, then at Poland, August 27th, and then September 3rd, home versus Worcester, September 10th, home versus North Canton Hoover, September 17th at Lake, 24th, home versus Perry, October 1st at Green, October 8th, home versus Glen Oak, 15th at Alliance, and 23rd at Lindsley, West Virginia, and that is a 1:30 start time for a Saturday game for the
I believe I believe that's 5 Division I schools out of 10 games on that schedule. Yeah, they're Division III. So Louisville is absolutely making full use of that independent schedule, playing teams that are not just Division I, but good Division I programs, especially in Glen Oak. Barberton's a really great football program. And then you got run through their schedule again, because it just went.
You had Barberton, you had North Canton, Hoover, Lake, Perry.
Hoover. I mean, it's a brutal gauntlet of a schedule, and when they get into the Division III playoffs, and they've played so many Division I teams, they're going to be looking around saying, these guys are actually kind of small.
And you figure too, a 7-3 and 8-2 record for Louisville won't even be that bad seeding wise, especially if they have 2 or 3 wins against those Division I schools. Computer points wise, they're going to be seeded pretty high. And that one game too, I'm excited at Poland, August 27th, because there's not many games where they're playing inner YSN schools, and that's one that stands out.
Right?
Where they're coming around here too. Not too many times Louisville makes the trek to around here. So to see the Leopards in action at Poland, that should be a very good game too.
Yeah, and how about Poland? They get to open against Canfield, and then they get to host Louisville too. 2 really big games to lead off the season.
I mean, you're going to need this defensive prowess if you're Poland. And again, if you haven't heard our Poland coverage too, we already talked about Poland earlier on last week. And we already previewed the Bulldogs, and I think this was one of the games we highlighted too, and we said was going to be an interesting game.
Yeah, I mean, Louisville's schedule just absolutely gauntlet, and I'm circling also, and I scanned over it, but that Glen Oak game is going to be a rough and tough game. I mean, Glen Oak is so physical, and Louisville is going to be happy if they can walk away from that game not just with the win, but also healthy, because that's going to beat them up pretty good. I mean, Glen Oak is a very physically based football program.
He wants to build a program, and they're looking to build this program over this course of this year. Going to give them some stiff competition. I
like that you used the word build, because their motto this year, their tagline, and on their shirts, it's going to say built different. And that schedule is going to build them different than a lot of other Division
Yeah.
III schools. I'll tell you that much.
And I like it too. I like the way they're scheduling. I like the way that the mantra is, the motto, the team philosophy is kind of gearing towards. I like the way that they're scheduling up and they're saying, hey, you might come in and you might beat us up, but we're welcoming in all challengers.
Right.
And hey, that in itself is kind of intimidating to teams.
It's a insane schedule from Louisville. Going to have them so prepared for that Division III playoffs if they're lucky enough to make it. And like you said, 8 wins with that schedule might get them a top 5 spot in the Division III.
I think so, especially if you have 3 or 4 wins against Division I opponents. Oh my God, computer points wise, you're going to be ranked super high. And even if there's some losses and they're against Division I opponents, you're not going to lose many points.
I don't believe they play anyone below Division III either. I think everyone is at least No, wait. Poland's 4. Poland is 4, but they're a strong 4.
Yeah.
And everyone else, everyone outside of Poland, I believe, is 3 or higher.
I believe so as well. And I think that's a smart choice by Louisville to make sure that they're scheduling 3 or higher, with the exception of Poland. And that's just a good matchup anyway. And I think they wanted to get someone of the size and stature of the Bulldogs because there's not too many teams that are Division III and above that play Poland's style of football, which is that running style, size, up front style of football. They go to more of a pass-heavy quarterback running out of the backfield type of game plan. When you go Division III, Division II, and Division I, especially, it's a lot of passing game in D1. So you want to get all sorts of games. You want to see all sorts of teams play different styles of offenses. And I think this is a good schedule for Louisville to get something a little bit different and outside of the box of what they normally see.
Poland might throw the ball 5 times in a game.
Yeah, exactly. And they're gonna be that team that punches you in the mouth, and they're gonna try to run it right down your throat, and you're gonna have to try to contain them and stop them up front.